Good afternoon and welcome to this month's Broker University webinar. Arizona Realtors is proud to bring you this monthly webinar series designed exclusively for designated brokers to learn fresh insights on current topics and trends from your peers. I'm Callie Waterhouse with the Arizona Association of Realtors, and today's Broker University presenter is broker Holly Eslinger. Holly will be walking us through the Broker Policy Manual. We'll be covering what to include in your policies and procedures, how often to update, and how to use it to protect you, your brokerage, and your agents. Holly has over 34 years of experience in real estate, as well as the past president of both the Scottsdale Area Association and the Arizona Association of Realtors. Holly's presentation will be approximately 40-45 minutes today, followed by a few minutes of Q&A at the very end. As always, our webinars are recorded and available online on our website at www.aaronline.com. You can search in the Increased Knowledge tab and you'll find our webinars there. Thank you very much for joining us today, Holly, and welcome.
And you need to be able to identify who's going to be responsible and then the consequences. So of non-performance is going to be very important. You can't hold people accountable if they don't know what you require of them. So your policy manual is what sets that standard for you. So let's take a second, and what I'm going to ask Callie to do is very quickly just run through, let's see, Callie, you want to do the next slide because that's kind of the one, yeah, let's do that one first.
Okay.
And then I've kind of given you the why because of the commissioner rules, and then the what because it sets the expectation, direction, rules, and solutions. Where is you have to decide on what your agents are going to be allowed to do and what the results are going to be. And then there's a when. And the when is really, in my mind, before you hire your first agent. It would be nice if you took the time to think about what you want in your policy manual. It doesn't have to be a 500-page document. It can be as small as you want it, but to establish what needs to be done. Now, Callie, let's go through the next slide. That's what's in your policy manual. And that's what we're really going to talk about this morning. We're going to talk about things that I think are extremely important for you to include in your policy manual. Now, I may be the only person that has talked to you like this, but my policy, I'm going to tell you like I do it. And my policy manual is a living document. It changes constantly. It doesn't stay static because if there's something in our industry that I need to address, what I do is I actually will put out a bulletin to my agents, and then I'll hold on to my bulletin until the end of the year when I do a revision of my policy manual. And I make sure that those changes are included in the policy revision that I make. So the next, this is the big part. And what I'd like, Callie, just run through this slide, just keep going. And you're going to see how many different areas, yeah, just keep going and then we'll back into this.
Okay.
So for the next 3 slides, she's just going to show you what a table of contents looks like. And all of these items, what I'd like you to do is I would like you today, as we go through this, just to be thinking about, do I want to include it or not? And so I am not going to run through every one of these topics. Now, this is what my policy manual looks like. This is what my table of contents looks like. So all of these things I have addressed in my policy manual, but you may not need to. A perfect example, and as Callie's going through this, you don't see anything that says property management here, do you? Well, that's because I don't do property management. So there's no need for me to have a property management section. So depending on what your business looks like and what your business model looks like is basically what's going to be addressed in your policy manual. So what I'd like you to do, now Callie, can we go back 3 slides?
Of course.
You know what? I should have taken all of that out. Sorry about that. You can,
Okay.
That's perfect.
Okay.
All right. Now, what I'd like to do is I would like to tell you that if we take these first topics and you're going through them, you may say, you know, I really don't have any business relationships, let's say. I'm a small company, and so I don't have a referral policy. Well, maybe that's something that you might want to leave in or not. It's interesting to me because as we go through these, you'll see how some are more important than others. But, and I'm not going to spend too much time on some of them, but I would like to point out the first one, advertising. There is so much information for you on what is required of a broker with regards to advertising. I'm going to suggest that you go to AAR online, and when you go to AAR online, in the search bar that's up in the upper right-hand corner, just put in advertising. And you are going to be very surprised at what comes up. It's going to give you a lot of information that you can either include or not. The next one is agency, and you need to decide with regards to agency what you want your company to look like. Do you allow dual agency? You know, there are some companies that are that don't allow dual agency. And do you allow single dual agency? Well, I mean, what does it do to your E&O insurance? How do you handle dual agency when you have one agent working with both the buyer and the seller? What is your liability? Perhaps you're going to make a decision on how you want to handle dual agency. There are also some companies that are just buyer companies, and all they do is they just handle just buyers. They don't work with sellers. So that's an important, an important issue. The next one, I have counseled with a lot of brokers because some brokers are new to the business and don't realize that you have to 1099 your agents at the end of the year. And you have to W-2 your employees. So your annual tax reporting is going to be something that you are going to need to know. You may not need to put it in your policy manual, though. That may just be something that you leave out. But just a note that you do need to do your reporting. Now, let me caution you, some of you that are on the phone, and I don't know how many, but some of you may be under the self-employed broker's license. If you are under the self-employed broker's license and are acting under your Social Security number, do not hire any agents. And the reason why is you are employing agents under your Social Security number, which changes your whole tax consequence. So please be aware that if you're going to hire agents, and believe me, there are a lot of brokers out there that think that they're just going to be on their own. They're not going to hire any agents, and then in a few months you've got a friend that says, "Oh, but can't I just hang my license with you?" So that's just an FYI that I would give you with regards to tax reporting. Obviously, I'm not an accountant, so you do need to talk to your accountant before you make any decisions like that. And certainly get your tax ID number and work under that. We're going to pass by antitrust because if you're a broker, you understand that you can't talk about each other or can't discuss commissions, things like that. So we're not going to talk about antitrust compliance. I am going to talk to you, though, about assistants and teams. This has been a huge issue, mainly because I think that this is so important and really can get the broker into big compromising issues. So I would like you, if you are going to have teams, to address the teams issue and certainly take a class on teams. So if we're giving one the Certified Residential Broker Program Teams class, which is a 2-day class, is a must for hiring teams. So that you definitely are going to want to spend some time on, but only if you're going to hire teams. Let's move down to broker signature requirements. Remember that your policy manual sets the standard for your company. So under broker signature requirements, what are you going to ask the agents to include for you in their files that you're going to approve, and that the Department of Real Estate has the statutory requirements to actually check them. So I encourage you to really concentrate on how you want the agents to handle their listings and sales. Are you going to have paper files? Are you going to do transaction management? And what the time frames for turn-ins? And what happens when they don't turn their file in and a commission check comes in? This is an area that I have a very strong policy on, and basically what I say is their files have to be complete before I will give them their check. Now, what if they don't even turn in a file? Well, I have a form, it's called a late letter, and that late letter is pretty intense, because I actually list the statute, and I make them understand what the statute says, and then sign that they will never do this again, and that they are super sorry, and I make them sign a statement to that effect. So it's kind of making them aware that this is an important part of the process. I have 10 days in which to approve their paperwork, and otherwise I can be sanctioned by the Department of Real Estate. That's not in my vocabulary, and I won't let my agents put me in that position. So you want to make sure that your broker signature requirements is pretty clear, and you need to let them know what the ramifications are. And with late files, it's signing the dreaded late letter. If you need a copy of that letter, what you can do is you can ask Callie, and I'll make sure that if any of you are interested in seeing what mine looks like, I'm more than happy to share that with you. Let's move down now to commissions. This is one of the very important sections that you want to make sure that you spend quality time on. This is where the majority of your disputes are going to come from. If you have a number of agents, and especially if they're agents doing business in the same area, then you're always going to have commission disputes. And you want to make sure that you have addressed exactly what is going to happen with commissions and how they're going to be paid, who's going to pay them, whether it's going to be the title company or whether it's going to be the broker. How do you want them handled? And then the next, and this can be a really good discussion, that you have an interactive discussion with your agents if you would like to, is in a staff meeting, get them together and say, we're going to discuss commissions today. And they'll all be there because they'll think that what you're going to do is you're going to cut their commissions. So you can be reassured that everybody will be there. And you can say to them, we're going to have an interactive discussion today on how we handle commissions and how we handle business disputes. So, and what you do is you give them like 3 or 4 questions that you would have for them. Some of the questions can be, what do you do if you know that one of your clients is working with another agent in this office, or working with another agent from another company, and you're showing the same houses? You might get into a procuring cause issue. So, and then other questions could possibly be, what do you think about getting a PLLC? So actually establishing a personal liability company that you are paid through. And so that you actually act as then an agent of that PLLC, and the commissions are paid to the PLLC. So you can have this discussion with your agents and actually see what their feelings are. If you're a traditional company where you're on splits, I would certainly encourage you, before having a discussion on commissions, that they not talk directly about the splits. Now, it's interesting because you just heard me say that you can't talk about, when we were talking about the antitrust compliance, you can't talk about commissions and things like that, but you can talk about them in your company. You just can't talk about them with other people. Like you and I could not have a conversation tomorrow about what commissions I charge or what my agents pay. We can't have that kind of a conversation. But I certainly can have a conversation with my agents about how commissions are paid. So that's a very important spot. The other thing about commissions that I would try to include is if there's an in-house dispute. So in other words, if you do have some kind of a dispute between agents, and it does happen, not frequently, but it does happen, then what you want to do is you want to have the dispute resolution within your company. You don't want to take it out of your company. So this is what I suggest. You have your two agents, so each agent gets to select another agent that's going to be on a panel. So now you've got two people on the panel, and you pick the third person, and you have a panel of three that's going to hear the complaint and then make a decision on what to do. So you may want to put something like that in your policy manual, that's how any disputes are going to be handled. You may have another way of handling commission disputes, and whatever's the easiest for you is fine, but just include it. So, and the reason why is because your agents need to know ahead of time exactly what to expect if there is a dispute. Callie, you want to move to the next page, and we are going to talk about the risk management side. This is one side that I do want to spend a fair amount of time on, and that's disclosure policies. Your disclosure documents are what are going to keep you in line and covered by your E&O. It is very important that you make a list of the required documents that you want in your broker file to protect you. A couple of things that I did before I actually established this section is I talked to Lisa Robinson, who is my insurance broker, and I actually went over with her what she thought. I gave her a list of all the forms. I didn't want to overwhelm my agents, but I wanted to make sure that I had enough in the file if my agent was to leave me tomorrow and then a suit came in a month later, that I would be able to defend that suit. So I'm going to give you some of the ones that I actually require. And I'll go through this not too fast, just in case you're writing some of these down. And if you are, they are actually in the policy manual. I've included them in the manual that is at ADRE. They actually have this list within the document itself. But affidavit of disclosure, agency forms, airport disclosures, buyer advisory, any city ordinances, and that compliance. The dangerous drug lab disclosure, that's very important, especially if you're working in Phoenix with some of the meth labs. For the East Valley, the Fisher maps might be very important. The other are the airport maps, like the Luke Air Force Base. If you're over in Surprise, that's something that you have to have. Obviously, the lead-based paint disclosure. I require the pool disclosure. If there is a pool on the property, the SPDS is a must for me. This hasn't been discussed in quite a while, but it's still out there, and that's the Superfund and the wharf sites that are down around McDowell and Scottsdale Road in that area for some of the Scottsdale brokers. Now, there are possibly, depending on what area of town or city that you're in, you may have other disclosure documents that are going to be important to be in your broker file. No matter where you are in the state, I can assure you that your city has some kind of disclosure that needs to go to every buyer. You need a copy of that in your file. So I would certainly encourage you to take some time, because disclosure documents are where you reduce your risk. The more opportunity that you have for clear disclosure to the client, the better off you're going to be. Now, as we move through this, I'm going to move down to harassment. Lots of brokers think that, oh my gosh, I'm not going to put a harassment policy in my, that's only for companies that have employees. Not so. Absolutely not so. If you talk to your insurance person, one of the big things that they have is the harassment issue. And it is very, very, very important that you have a policy. It doesn't have to be big, but it has to be in your policy manual. The other part of your harassment policy needs to be how they're able to report. So let's say you've got a staff person who's being harassed by one of your agents. That staff person has got to feel comfortable enough, because it may be one of your top producers, and they may say to themselves, oh, I'm not going to report them because I don't want to get them in trouble because they're a top producer. You have to have a policy where they're safe and where they can come and they can talk to you or whomever you want. And then after they have reported, then how are you going to handle it? And who's going to be responsible for that? Is it going to be you? I will tell you, in my company, if there's harassment, I know about it, I counsel my agents, and I make a determination on the consequences. It doesn't make any difference to me whether my agent is a top producer or not. I will not allow harassment in my company. Absolutely not. So this is one that I'm going to encourage you to actually include in your policy manual. Then moving along to your independent contractor and employee agreements, it's very important, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because this is another class, but is your independent contractor agreements. In your independent contractor agreements, you have to reference your policy manual, and that the consequences for a violation of your policy manual is termination. That is the only way that you can ensure that your agents are going to follow what's in your policy manual. Then under insurance, very briefly, this is something that I don't think most brokers do, but I do, is under the automobile policy, I have the company as a co-insured. I ask all of my agents to add exclusive homes and land as an additional insured. It doesn't cost them anything. All they have to do is just to call their insurance company. And then what that means is that you're going to get a copy of their declaration page then every time they renew. It's, once again, it's just an insurance policy for you that ensures that everything is going to be okay. Let me give you an example of what actually happened to me. One of my agents was out with clients and got involved in a fairly serious rollover accident with the clients in the car. Fortunately, the clients weren't hurt that badly, just scared and hanging from the, which is now the ceiling of the car, in their seatbelts. So it was a very, very fortunate. But I was a co-insured on my agent's insurance policy, and if they had sued my agent, they would also sue me. And in this case, that acting as a co-insured, the company as a co-insured, protected me against any liability with regards to that accident. Just an FYI. Under E&O insurance, I think that you ought to have a section that talks about how it's going to be paid. You know, is it paid on an annual basis? Is it paid per transaction? Is it paid in a transaction fee? How is it paid? And then what happens if there's a violation? So for instance, if you have a claim against you and you're being represented by your E&O carrier, then they're going to try to settle the claim somewhere around $10,000. And you all have a deductible. So who pays the deductible? If the claim and the payout is $10,000, let's just say your deductible is $5,000. Are you going to pay the $5,000? I would certainly hope not. Is your agent going to pay it? Well, you got to let them know ahead of time that that's going to be a responsibility that they have. If there's a claim, then they're going to be responsible for the deductible. Important to have that in your policy manual. Because remember, your policy manual, once again, is a place of reference. So if your agents, if you tell your agents you're going to do something, they go to the policy manual and there's nothing in there, they have an opportunity to say, hey, we didn't know. You can't hold me responsible for something I didn't know about. So your policy manual is an opportunity to shift liability from you to your agents. Shift liability from you to your agents. And then you're going to be safe. Moving along from insurance, I think we've kind of, talked about this until we're blue in the face. But let me talk one more time about internet, websites, and social media. There has to be a company identification. And I really encourage you that when your agents are advertising, and this will be part of your advertising policy and what you look up when you read Michelle Lynn's articles on this, but you should have a method for your agents to let you know what they're doing on social media, what their websites are. So it's important, I think, that you have some kind of a policy. Let me give you an example. This fortunately did not happen in my company, but it did happen in somebody's company, that an agent was posting very, very negative comments about another agent and how they had made them in 115 degrees. They had made the agent stay outside and wouldn't let the agent bring their clients in because they were with their clients. And their clients had asked to be able to see the house without any interruption. Well, when the agent got back, they really slammed the agent for not letting them in the house. And it was totally inappropriate. It was very bad. And there was a complaint, an ethics complaint lodged about, the disparaging of another agent. So this is an area where I think that you should spend a little bit of time and write down your feelings and what the consequences would be. In the case that I just gave you, I think a warning would be fine. The first one, if it ever happened again, I think termination would be the next thing that I would do, because obviously you may have an agent that's out of control, and an out of control agent, believe me, can shut down your business. So all the Department of Real Estate needs is to know that there is an agent disparaging other agents. Now moving along, because this is the most important thing, and it's like the shortest little thing up there, but this is where violations of this area equal termination. No questions asked. This is your risk management section, and that is licensed activity. Your licensee, what they can do and what they can't do. And before I go through this, and I'm just going to kind of give you some highlights, before I go through this, this is an area where you can say you are in violation of the company if you do the following. For me, it's property management, and it's anything like accepting rental checks, doing anything like that. I really discourage my agents from doing leases, because I don't have a trust account. And so what they have to do is, if they're going to do a lease, they know that this is a possible violation. And they usually come to me and say, this is the situation, what should I do? And they get my approval before they actually do it. If they take any money, I'll terminate them right away. They need to go to a property management company. So that's very, very important, that you list the activities that you will not allow them to do, and then the ones that they can do. Under licensee activity, I talk about address changes, that they have 10 days to get to the Department of Real Estate and change their address. What happens with alcohol and illegal drug use? I did have an agent once that did have, was using illegal drugs, and actually asked the client if they would like to smoke before they went into a house. And that's not cigarettes, you guys. So that's, in my mind, that's a huge violation. Then the areas of expertise. What areas of expertise will I allow my agents to work in? I don't allow my agents to do inspections. I don't allow them to do appraisals. So you have to list what areas of expertise they can work in. And then the authorized, this is the area that we just talked about, authorized and unauthorized real estate activities. What happens with company meetings? Credit reports, disputes between sales associates, dress codes. I don't like my agents wearing jeans when they show property. I like them to look, if they're dealing with the largest investment in a family's life, then I like them to look like they're responsible and that they don't just dress sloppily. What to do with earnest money? Electronic and digital signatures. Now, fortunately, most everything is done that way, but there are still companies and certainly lenders that will not allow digital signatures. The hiring and firing of my agents. Illness or injury, how they handle that. Leases, do I allow that or not? MLS, I don't allow them to have one MLS. If they've got a couple of people working under them, they have to have MLS for every person on their team. How to handle open houses. I'm having let me take a second and talk to you about open houses. I know that this is a phenomenal way for the agents to pick up new clients. But their safety and security is one that I feel very strongly about. And I'm having a little bit of a hiccup myself. I haven't really said no to open houses, but I do think about it quite frequently. that when they're advertising their open houses on Facebook, they can, with the address, they can get anybody just showing up at the door. And what's the safety policy that the company has? Do you have a safety policy? That's another thing that I'm a little worried about right now. If you can tell that I'm still kind of churning it over in my mind on exactly what to do and how to help my agents. We do have a code that that we can use, and a procedure that we can call, but sometimes things happen so fast on an open house, and what you're trying to do is you're there to sell the open house, if you can, or at least pick up a client, but not put yourself in a bad situation. So I would do, honestly, probably once a year, do a company meeting where we just talk about safety and some of the, like carrying your keys in your hand. I mean, you couldn't get a text off fast enough if somebody was going to hurt you. Not walking in front of the client, walking behind, let them walk in front of you. All of those things you could put in your safety policy. Partnership agreements between sales associates. This is really the team issue. If you have a team, then how are they going to get paid? What are their responsibilities going to be, and what are the agreements between the sales associates? Even if it's not a team, it may be two agents that are just teaming up. What is the partnership agreement going to be? I encourage them to have everything in writing. And then once again, we talked about personal safety. That's a prime concern and should be for every broker. Pre-possession and post-possession, how do you feel about that? Property management. The request for information that comes in by subpoena or government officials. Oops, I hate to see those. Because usually what that is an issuance from the court for child support and things like that. So that's a tough one, but you need to know, the agents need to know where to go and what to do when they receive those documents. Sales associate expenses is another thing that I have not only in my independent contractor agreement, but I also have in my policy manual, because I want to make sure that they know that I'm not going to buy them a car, I'm not going to pay for their withholding, I'm not going to pay for their insurance, I'm not going to pay for their health insurance. It's all their responsibility. So I just put it out there so that they know what their responsibilities are going to be. The more they know, the better they can react. What to do with short sales. How to handle their signs. How to handle smoking. I don't allow smoking in the office. So where can they go to smoke if they do? The submission of their documents. Where to submit them. How to submit them. The time frame for submission. And then this is the biggest one. This is absolutely the biggest one, and the one that you're going to spend some quality time on, and that's your termination policy. You absolutely must have a termination policy in your policy and procedures manual, because it sets up for the consequences. The use of a transaction management system, if you're using one, how to do it. Unlicensed assistants. If you're going to hire unlicensed assistants, make sure that you understand that you as the broker are still responsible for all the assistants, even if they're working for one of the teams. You're still responsible. And unlicensed assistants, just FYI, cannot be paid as a part of every closing. Cannot be paid as a part of every closing. Very, very important. Vacations, and if they're out of town, who's going to cover for them? And then this one I put in only because I had one very questionable experience but voluntary office romances. And I know that you're going to laugh about that, and you don't have to put it in your policy manual, but I had a little bit of a hiccup when one of my agents and my office staff started this wonderful romance, and I wasn't sure whether I was going to lose the agent or lose the staff person, and I really didn't want to lose either. But working 24/7 with each other just doesn't work in real estate very well. So I included that in my manual. Okay, that's it for licensee activity. We've got about 12 more minutes, so I'm going to go over the last slide just pretty quickly. Let's go down to the privacy policy and data security. And the only thing that I really want to say about this is data security right now is a hot button. And the agents really do need to know exactly what to do with the sensitive information that they have. If they, especially in property management, if they are working with tenants who have just filled out an application with social security numbers, driver's license numbers, and everything, all of that needs to be kept under lock and key. And this is the biggie. Your E&O does not cover cyber breaches, and there is no policy except a data security insurance policy that will cover you for an issue. And let me just tell you, if you are or your agents are caught in the data security arena, they are going to make you supply every client that you have in your company with a year's worth of credit monitoring, which can be about $300 a client. So, and they won't just say, oh, well, it was only one client. They'll make you do everybody. So be really careful. You might want to talk to your insurance broker about the data security insurance policies that are available now. I did look into it, and they're not terribly expensive, but it depends on the size of your company also. We covered social media, and I'm not going to get into trust accounts because that's going to be a separate webinar for you, so you'll get more about that. I will talk to you just very briefly about weapons. You know, it's really interesting. I had one of my fellas at one time say, I always carry a gun in my car. And, you know, my first instinct was to say, where is it? And is it secured? Because think about it this way. What would happen if they had to use it? Would they shoot a client by mistake? Well, what would they do? And if it's under lock and key, by the time they unlocked it, got it out, you know, did something with it, they would probably be dead anyway. So, you know, I'm a little concerned about weapons. But that's something you're going to have to decide, you know, and that's another interactive discussion that you can have with your agents. That would be a really good one to have, and to talk to them and find out who actually carries weapons in their car, because you know, there's a concealed weapon law here, so you can carry a weapon that's concealed, and so it's something that you need to know about. I would certainly ask your E&O carrier, because it's probably not going to fall under E&O. It'll probably fall under your general liability policy. But you should know a little bit more about the weapons law. Now, moving on, because I want to talk to you about what's next. What we're going to do is, and this is kind of like a homework assignment, if you will. I mean, not to say that you should have a homework assignment, but I kind of used it as mine, because my first policy manual, I mean, I did most of it at home. And I just sat down and went through my list, just like I've given you here, and I've checked off the areas that I want to address. So I've marked the areas that I'm going to write something about. And then under each one, I just took my time and I thought about what happens, and I always use what if. And I write my policy so that I can answer what if. And so if I say advertising, okay, what if my agent doesn't put the name of the company on the advertising? What will happen? So that may be something that I want to include then in my policy manual that talks about the what ifs and then what's going to happen. You know, are you going to have your violation policy? What's it going to be? Is it going to be 3 strikes you're out? Is it going to be, for me, the harassment policy, there is no 3 strikes you're out. For me, harassment policy means if you're harassing somebody, then you need to find another company. So I have 0 tolerance for some things. And then I have plenty of tolerance for other things because they're usually just honest mistakes that the agents make. So after you've addressed which one of these you want in your policy, then write. It doesn't have to be 25 pages. All it has to be is very succinct. What the policy is, the statement of what the policy is, then you have to write who's going to be responsible for that, and then the what happens if they violate it. So what's going to happen with the violation part. And then after, this is the interesting part to me because I really enjoy making sure that my agents have a buy-in. And my staff. So what I do is I get them all together, and any changes to the policy, I get their agreement before the change. I give them the policy change that I want to make, and then we have a discussion in a company meeting. We'll discuss it. If I get a lot of pushback, I need to know why. And you know, I always say to my agents, if we don't handle it this way, what way do you see it being handled? So that they have an opportunity for input. Number one, it makes them feel good because they're a part of the process. And once I finish with my policy manual, then I know my agents are going to be okay with it because we've already discussed it. Remember once again that this is a living document and that it's going to change when you have changes. So mine is just in a binder. When I make a change, I just make a copy of the change and I put it in the front of the policy manual to be added at the end of the year when I do my year's revisions. Well, I'm certainly hopeful. I know we went through this very fast, and I know that the policy manual is one thing that is not on your mind of fun things to do, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming. And it can be fun because when you're done, it really speaks to who you are. You know, I am happy to, I've been asked if I would actually do people's policy manual, and no, I don't do that. And the reason why I don't do it is not because I don't want to. It could be a lucrative side business for me, but I would still have to sit down and you would still have to answer all the questions. So the bottom line is, why pay somebody to do your manual when, in order to make it worthwhile, it needs to be a part of you. You need to have a buy-in yourself. I will tell you that lots of brokers, I can't say lots, but some brokers have just printed out the policy manual that's on the Department of Real Estate site and just stuck it in a folder and said, this is my manual. But when there is a dispute, if you don't have a well thought out policy manual, you have no place to go. And as the broker, I want to be in charge. I don't want my agents to be in charge of the company and the protection of the company. So it's my responsibility to protect my agents and to let them know what the responsibilities are that they have to me and to the company. The only way that that can be done is with a policy manual that I've done myself. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to turn it back to Callie right now, and then just let me know if, let Callie know if you're interested in the late letter, and then I'll be happy to get that to her. Thanks for having me today as your instructor, and I look forward to talking to you again on Teams.
Well, Holly, thank you so very much. We just have a couple of questions. It kind of sounds like your policy manual is just for protection. It sets you up as a business, not as a hobbyist, but it's just flat out your expectations and what you'll allow and what you'll put up with.
Absolutely. The policy manual is actually your first step to your risk management, because it sets what the expectations are and what the consequences are if they don't follow what the policy manual says. Look at it this way. If you don't have a policy manual, your agents can just run wild. They can do whatever they want because you haven't set up any expectations. If you don't have expectations, don't worry about it. You know, I just hope you've got a hell of a policy, because you're sure going to need a very, very good E&O policy.
Very true.
Yep.
You talked about the data security coverage. Who do you talk to about obtaining that coverage?
I talked to Lisa Robinson. Whoever handles your insurance, you can talk about the data security policies. There are a couple, and depending on the size of your company, she can actually bid that for you.
Okay, and Lisa Robinson is with Pinnacle Insurance.
Yes,
folks,
that's
in case
correct.
You need that. And when do you give your agents this policy manual the very first time?
When they walk in my door to sign up as an agent. Okay. What I do is I actually will sit down with them after I give them 30 days to review the policy manual. And then I call them back into my office and we sit down and we talk about those things that could create the big violations. And what I set my expectations. And so then I don't have any agents that say, oh, I didn't know that. So I have them read it first, and then I meet with them and we talk about it.
And do you have them sign
Yes.
anything?
Yes, I have. I have a statement that goes in their file that is just a release that I have released the policy manual and that they have reviewed it. They've had 30 days to review it, and they understand that we've sat down, and I have them sign it after we sit down and we go over the manual again.
Well, one of the questions was about having your monthly meeting.
Yes.
Talking about safety and basically all the things in your manual.
Absolutely. And really, the use of your policy manual is a great opportunity to have company meetings. And like I said, I have them monthly, and so they're already set up on my agent's calendar. And I have 100% attendance because my agents know that they're going to receive a lot of very valuable information. And what I do with my manual, it's not a hand slap. Your manual should never be so negative that they can't move or they can't be who they are. That's not what this is for. This is a guidance manual. Maybe instead of a policy and procedures manual, you call it a guidance manual. This allows them the opportunity to know what you expect as a company. And you know, those of you that have raised children, you know, you got to set up expectations. Well, you've got to set up expectations with your agents, or else they just don't follow any rule. So it's very, very, very important that the agents know what you expect and then what the consequences are going to be for noncompliance.
So it kind of sounds like it's just setting everybody up for success.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I let them know that that's what I want. I want the company to be successful. I want them to be successful. And the more informed an agent is, the better they're going to act with their clients, and the less problems that are inherent with this industry.
Well, thank you so very much for joining us again today, Holly. We really appreciate it. Any closing words?
You know, I would say that of all of the responsibilities that a broker has, this is the most important. And what I want for all of you is I want you all to understand that there is tremendous risk in our business. And setting yourself up to reduce that risk is what we all need to do. And the better we handle it right up front with our agents, setting the expectation and having them understand what noncompliance means, and that, you know, and what our expectations are, will set us up for total success. And that's what I want for you, total success.
Total success. Well, thank you very much. And folks, please mark your calendar. We have coming up on August 12th, advertising and RESPA. Yes. One of our favorite topics. Join us with attorney Mary Frances Coleman will be joining us, and we are going to be talking about everything: compliance, non-compliance, violations, what to know, how not to get caught. And you can register online at aaronline.com/calendar. And then, as Holly mentioned earlier, our next Broker University webinar is coming up on August 20th, also at 12 o'clock. And we're going to be talking with Mike Mumford about property management, audit compliance, record keeping. And he has graciously agreed to join us and bring us just some step-by-step processes that you can do to immediately get your files in compliance and audit ready. It's not a matter of if you're ever going to be audited, it's when. So this is a proactive webinar to help us all get ready for that inevitable audit. And of course, because you are all brokers, we want everyone to know that registration is now open for our upcoming Industry Partners Conference. This year, our topic is super, super exciting. We're talking about the CFPB changes coming up in October. So if you really have questions about TRID and wanting to know more about those timelines and what, you know, starts what, this is an opportunity to meet with the title people, the lenders, and the realtors all in one place at one time, and get some answers. So we're super thrilled to be hosting it again this year with the Mortgage Lenders Association and the Title Association, coming up September 16th at Chaparral Suites. We do have a page on Facebook that you can join in. So facebook.com/Industry Partners Conference, and join the conversations over there. I think right now we have a video up that includes Commissioner Lowe and some realtors talking about the benefits of attending IPC. As always, this webinar has been recorded and will be available on our website shortly. All of our webinars are available 24/7, so you can listen to them in your pajamas at home at midnight while drinking a cup of coffee. So thank you very much for joining us today, folks. We look forward to seeing you again in August. If you have any questions, feel free just to respond to either one of the webinar emails or the survey email that you will receive in a couple of hours. And if you want Holly's late letter, just respond to that email and I will get that over to you. Thank you so very much and have a great day.